Good morning, Year 10, and welcome to your second lesson on A Christmas Carol, Who is Fred? So once again, these videos will coincide with your lessons that are set on Edulink via Mr. Paul. So please do make sure that you are keeping up with these. This lesson goes live today on Friday, and the lesson content will be due Tuesday. Okay, that's Tuesday, so you must email myself if you're in my class, or Mr. Paul if you're in his class, with the evidence of your work. Okay, it's the only way we can track what you're doing and award you properly. Okay, so let's get started with Who is Fred. So once again, our lesson objective is the same as yesterday, or sorry, I'm filming it on Tuesday. It's the same as a couple of days ago when you saw this first video, and that is to give you the goods to complete your second lesson due Tuesday and to explore Fred's opening characterization and Dickens's intentions behind him. So I mentioned last lesson, here he is, Fred, that Fred is Scrooge's nephew. One of his sort of only primary surviving relatives. Fred is the son of Scrooge's sister, who we will hear about in later staves, later chapters. Okay, so make sure you have your pen and your pad at the ready to make lots of little notes here, or a creative mind map, however you work best, and let's get ahead and get into it. Now, I thought best to start today's lesson with a little bit of inspiration. So I took this short and sharp, big idea introduction from a former year 11. Okay, they're in year 12 now, but they did achieve a grade 9. And this was one of their practice essays. They wrote many practice essays for me on characters and themes alike. And this was the one they penned for Fred. So I'm just going to read this to you now. Within this festive allegorical novella, Dickens crafts Scrooge's only nephew, Fred, to function as a model for embracing Christmas. Most importantly, his characterization demonstrates the virtues associated with this time of year, namely goodwill, benevolence, family, and community. So as you can see from this introduction, what we have here is a very sharp summary regarding the reasons that the character of Fred has been placed in the novella. Remember last lesson I said to you, these are characters, they are not real people, so they are tools or vehicles through which Dickens the author seeks to communicate his ideas. Now, the thing is, the first character we meet is Scrooge, and we spoke about last lesson how he is the embodiment at the start of the novella of a very frugal, parsimonious, sort of segregated, malevolent individual, someone lacking goodwill, lacking benevolence, lacking family, lacking community, all of those virtues that we associate with Christmas that Fred has. So I think it's really interesting that one of the early characters we meet just after Scrooge is Fred. And there's clearly a structural reason for that, right? It's not a mistake. Dickens brings him in nice and early, so we can see a clear difference between these two characters. Okay, we can see that they are the antithesis of one another, and that word means the absolute opposite. If you place them on a scale, okay, we would have Scrooge on one end and we would have Fred on the direct opposite. Okay, so he has all of those positive qualities we associate with Christmas, and Scrooge is lacking them in their entirety. Okay, so structurally, and when we say grade 8, grade 9, we should get used to saying structurally within the novella, Dickens chooses to position Fred's entrance into the narrative at such an early stage, so we can draw some real contrasts between those two characters. And if anything, it makes us go, hang on, now that we've met Fred, if I hadn't got it before, I really truly see just how miserable Scrooge is, just how isolated he is, just how lacking he is in Christmas spirit. Okay, so I want to include now a summary of the key quotes and the key ideas that you will find in the PDF copies of your extracts from the novella that Mr. Paul would have placed on Edulink for you. Okay, so I've only chosen just a handful of key quotes for Fred because once again, you've got to learn these quotes, and it's just no good us lumping hundreds of quotes per text on you because you just won't learn them. It's about choosing those quotes judiciously, choosing the best, juiciest quotes, you know how I feel about that word, sorry, that has a lot to play with. Okay, so here we go. The first time the reader meets Fred, he is depicted as the embodiment of the Christmas spirit. So I said that in the first slide. Okay, when I say embodiment, I mean he's like this physical representation. Okay, he's like the personification of those qualities of the Christmas spirit. Okay, it's him in walking form. When he enters, and look at this quote in red here, he's described by Dickens as all in a glow. Now, think about it. The imagery that was used to describe Scrooge at the opening of the novella was dark and murky, and when it referenced the weather, it was cold. Okay, now we have imagery associated with warmth and light. Again, the direct opposite, the direct antithesis to the imagery associated with Scrooge. So I go back to that idea that they are opposite ends of a spectrum. They are foils to one another. If you put them side by side, they are oppositionals. Okay, so when he comes to meet Scrooge, and he does so at the start of stave 1, he's all in a glow, okay, when he enters that counting house. So the lexical choice glow connotes light, which is often linked with purity and hope. We know all this. And though it emphasises that Fred acts as this role model for Scrooge, he's someone that Scrooge can learn from, year 10. That's really important. Remember, a lot of people reading Dickens' novella would have been educated and therefore may well have been in a position of privilege. Therefore, may well have been in a position of ignorance regarding the plight of the working classes. And because of that, it was important that Dickens used his novella to educate. It has a didactic purpose. If you want to look that word up, didactic, pretty much spelled as it sounds, it means it has this teaching purpose. Okay? So Fred is educating Scrooge, but he is also educating the contemporary readers of Dickens' time. Okay, who desperately needed to learn, to have lessons in benevolence and kindness. So as soon as he enters that counting house, he is just this big fuzzy ball of light, isn't he? He spreads his Christmas cheer, and to be honest, he's fairly contented in his lifestyle. Now, lots of students get this a bit twisted. Fred is not rich. Okay, he is not rich. He is not a member of the upper class in the hierarchy. Okay, he is middle class as an educated individual, and he would have had a fairly stable job, but he's not super wealthy. Okay, but despite that, he's happy, he's contented. Okay, Scrooge thinks money equals happiness. Fred does not. Okay, and he makes it very clear in this quote here in red. There are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited. So that's just a fancy way of saying, year 10, there are so many things in my life, like experiences, relationships, things I've seen and heard, that I've learnt from, that I've derived good, that has impacted me for the better, but I've not profited from them. I've not been given money. Like if I, made someone smile, I didn't go, all right, that's 10 quid. He doesn't get enjoyment from those things. That's what he means there. Okay, so he's in direct opposition to Scrooge, who thinks that money is your way of validating your existence on this earth. All right, big old bit here, don't panic, I'll talk through it. So I took this again from that grade 9 essay, this bit here, because I just think it was so interesting. When he arrives, and you should have read this by now, he is said to have walked through the fog and the frost to reach Scrooge's counting house. Okay, so the weather really kind of links to Scrooge's personality and his attitude at the start. Now, if we take the fog and the idea of what the fog could represent, it could symbolise this lingering, because that's what fog does, it lingers, doesn't it, in the sky, this lingering presence of the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s and all of the negative things that it brought to society, right, such as apathy and ignorance. Now, let me just rephrase this bit here, okay? Dickens felt, and he had quite romantic notions, romantic with a capital R. It was a movement, okay, of artists after the Industrial Revolution. He felt that industrialization, that's all the factories that were being built, all the urbanization, all the mass, overpopulation in cities such as London. Okay, he felt that the industrialization, even though it brought forth advances in technology, right, it made people worse in so many ways. It made them apathetic when it came to charity, right, into helping other people. It encouraged ignorance. Okay, they didn't really care, how many children had to suffer up the chimneys, okay, or, unfortunately being sold into awful trades at a young age, as long as it kept them safe, and they were wealthy. So Fred has to wade through all of this fog and all of this frost, all this ignorance, all this negativity, all of this, all the Industrial Revolution and all of its pollution. And he does that, and when he arrives, despite all of that, okay, despite all of that negativity, he is still all in a glow. So for me, he stands out from this atmosphere of the Industrial Revolution and capitalism and people just focused on their material things, on their money and their gain. He is all in a glow. Something glows, it stands out. Think of him as a star in a dark night sky. The sky is the ills of capitalism, and he is this glowing ball of energy. Okay, so what he does through the fog and the frost is he clears a path for goodness and for cheerfulness, and hopefully that will make its way eventually into Scrooge's small melancholy, that means sad, life. Okay, I just thought that was so perceptive. I'm talking grade 9 and beyond there, that idea. Okay, so definitely worth writing down. So in summary, when he first arrives then, he certainly paints himself as this selfless and caring individual, and those qualities were really rare in the 1800s during that industrial time, super rare. Why is he selfless? Because he goes out of his way every year to invite Scrooge to his Christmas dinner and to his Christmas celebrations. Scrooge has said no every single year, and yet here he is, persisting, back again with the same level of enthusiasm, so selfless, so benevolent, to welcome him into his life. Okay, now in stave 1 we're introduced to basically Scrooge, Fred, Bob and the ghost of Marley, okay, or Marley's ghost, and those are our key characters that we're dealing with in stave 1. I will obviously mention Bob Cratchit at a later date, but I just wanted to make clear, and you should have read this opening part anyway, that Bob Cratchit, despite his hideous position working for Scrooge in his tank, in his cell, without sufficient fire to keep himself warm, despite all of that, okay, he perseveres as well. He embodies the Christmas spirit, just like Fred. Okay, Bob Cratchit and Fred, they're quite alike. Okay, in many ways, they share some real qualities. And the key thing, year 10, that joins them together is that they are the two most important characters at the start of the novella, the most consistent characters from start to finish, that help to bring about this transformation of Scrooge. Think of it scientifically. They're the catalysts, okay, for Scrooge's change, for his metamorphosis. They give that energy, that inspiration, that model for change that helps it happen. I mentioned this word at the start of the video, okay? I'm not talking tin foil, I'm talking foil in terms of characters. Fred is a foil to Scrooge, write it down, Okay, foil means two opposite characters, hero, villain. Okay, Batman, the Joker. Okay, whatever you need to help get that in your head. Okay, so two opposite characterization. So Fred is a foil to Scrooge. Okay, in so many ways. And because of that, it helps to show just how absolutely miserable Scrooge is and just how much he needs to change. Look at these paired quotes I've got here. Fred is handsome, okay, and Scrooge is hard and sharp as flint. Okay, this is a positive image, this is a negative. Okay, this is a warm, welcoming image, this is a cold, unwelcoming image. Okay, foils. Now here's some more challenge vocabulary for you today. So you might use this word. Fred is altruistic or altruistic. Okay, he displays a real charitable ethos, a way of thinking, okay, about his life. So what he says, and this is a key quote here, all my key quotes have been in red. When Scrooge goes on and on about the idle population, okay, those he believes are just lazy and that's the only reason they can't get a job, when in actual fact they're in abject poverty and stuck in that cycle, Fred is far more sympathetic to those people that are suffering. Okay, he says, actually, I see people beneath me within this social hierarchy as, and here's the quote, fellow passengers to the grave. So all that quote means is, year 12, sorry, I've done so many year 12 videos, year 10, okay, that he views them as his equals. That's it, they're fellow passengers. There is no discrimination, there is no prejudice from Fred. He believes in equality and in a better way of life. You could say that Fred is a mouthpiece for Dickens' positive ideas in the transformation of society. So I've already spoken for quite a bit, okay? My job is not just to give you everything, and you have to do some thinking in the tasks, okay? I wanted to sum up in 6, okay? 6 short, snappy ideas. What are we dealing with here with the introduction of Fred? Number 1, he believes that love and family is superior to money. Number 2, he allegorically, metaphorically represents the Christmas spirit. Number 3, he is totally accepting of Scrooge, despite his refusals. Number 4, he is a catalyst for Scrooge's change. Number 5, he is a foil to Scrooge, as is Bob. And lastly, he represents all of those virtues, all of those good qualities that Dickens associates with Christmas. Goodwill, charity, and these are, those virtues, exactly what society needs more of. Okay, so I'm going back, all the way back to end this video, to my big idea. Okay, this is who he is. He's here for a reason. His characterization, he functions as the embodiment of the positive virtues that we associate with Christmas, all that Scrooge lacks. Okay, so I'm really hoping that this video has given you the get up and go to get ready now in tackling Mr. Paul's ideas and tasks that have been set for you, and that big question, who is Fred? Of course, I would paraphrase at the end by saying, at the start of the novella, because we get more, right, as the novella goes forward. But for now, that's all for me, Year 10. Thank you very much.